This game also played at Zurich tournament in 1959. Fischer is 16 years old and he is playing against Unzicker of West Germany. Fischer playing white and Unzicker playing black. The opening is Re Lopez. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5, A6, bishop A4, knight F6, knight F6, castles, Fischer castles, bishop E7, rook E1, B5, bishop B3, D6, C3, black castles, H3, knight A5, bishop C2, C5, if C6, let us go back and see. If C6, D4, queen C7 is an interesting alternative. Let us go back and see. Last move played is C5, D4, queen C7, knight B D2, bishop D7, knight F1, rook F E8, knight E3. Tall and Geller recommended B3. Let us go back and see. Tall and Geller recommended this move, B3. If G6, bishop G5. But knight E3 is played. Knight E3 is played. G6, D into E5, D into E5, knight H2, rook A D8, queen F3. Queen goes off, indirect attack from the rook. Bishop E6, knight H G4, knight into G4, H into G4. Instead of that, let us go back and see. Instead of that, knight into G4, bishop into G4, H into G4 is inferior according to Fischer. G into H4 is played last. Queen C6. White gets an edge after knight C6, knight D5, bishop into D5, E into D5, E into D5. Let us go back. After H into G4, queen C6 is played. G5. After queen C6, G5 is played. Knight C4, knight G4, bishop into G4, queen into G4, F6. F6 is bad move. Because F6 is bad move because Unisker prefers active defense. He eliminates the potential pressure along the king rook file. It is true, but at the cost of weakening his E5 pawn. G into F6, bishop into F6, A4, knight B6, A into B5, A into B5, bishop E3. Because both the flanks are fluid, white with two bishops is better able to penetrate and exploit the loose pawns. Rook A8, knight C4 is met by bishop B3, instigating a awkward pin. But in the actual game, rook A8 is played. Rook E D1. The idea is, if he sweeps, white will get the rook file. If he doesn't, white will retain queen file. That is D file. King H8, B3, bishop G7, Black should ease the pressure by rook into a1. Let us see. Rook into a1, rook into a1, rook a8, rook into a8, knight into a8, queen d1, followed by queen a8. This move. This forces an invasion on the queen side. Let us go back, and what is played is bishop g7, queen h4, bishop f6, bishop g5, bishop into g5, queen into g5. Now white must penetrate either on rook file or queen file. Black's e pawn has clearly been exposed as a weakling. Rook into a1. The threat was, let us go back and see. Rook into a8. Yeah, the threat was rook into a8, knight into a8, rook d5, etc. Let us go back, and what is played is rook into a1. Rook into a1, knight d7, apparently defending everything. Rook a7 can be met by queen d6. Rook a7 can be met with queen d6. Let us go back. Bishop d1, bringing the bishop into the game puts additional pressure on the overburdened black's pawns. Knight f6, rook a7, queen d6, on knight into e4. Let us go back and see. On knight into e4, queen h6 forces mate. Therefore, queen d6 is played. Bishop e2, simply attacking a pawn. Curiously, black is in too much of a straitjacket to do much about it. Rook e7, rook into e7, queen into e7, bishop into b5, king g7, bishop e2. The win is still far from clear. White's major problem is creating a passed pawn on the queen side while shielding his king from perfectual check. Queen c7, threatening knight into queen e3, queen a5, g3, queen a3. Black should wait around queen c7, king g2. Sharper and immediate decisive is, let us go back and see what it is. b4, c into b4, queen c5, but king g2 is played, queen a5. If queen into b3, let us go back and see. If queen into b3, queen into c5, knight into e4, queen into e5, check, knight f6, c4 should win. Let us go back and see. What is played is king g2, queen a5, defending this pawn. Queen d3, queen b6, queen c4, queen c6, bishop d3. It is better to refrain from f3, which weakens the king side. Queen b6, b4, c into b4, c into b4. Step 1 is completed. White has a passed pawn on b file. Knight g4, queen c5, queen into c5, forced. If queen d8, let us go back and see. If queen d8, bishop e2 picks up another pawn. That is the second pawn black is losing. So therefore, queen into c5 is played, last move. B into c5, king f7, f4, king e7, king f3, knight f6. If h5, let us go back and see. If h5, bishop c4 maintains the bind. If king d7, bishop f7 swallows the pawns. Let us go back. Last move played is knight f6, bishop b5, not f into e5, knight d7 draws, because both the pawns are in black colors. White cannot defend with the bishop. After knight f6, bishop b5, king e6, bishop c4 check, king e7, c6. c6 is a good move. Knight e8, f into e6, h6, king e3, knight c7, blocking the pawn, king d4, h5, king e3, g5, bishop e2, h4, g into h4, g into h4, bishop c4, knight e8, king f4, king d8, king g4, king c7, bishop f7, knight g7, king into h4, king into c6, king g5, black resigns. After if king d7, king f6, knight e8 check, bishop into e8 leads to a easy win. Dear friends, all the moves are explained in this channel. If you like this channel, please share, subscribe and like, so that you can see all beautiful games of the great Bobby Fischer. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time.